Hey everyone, this is the first installment of a series that we'll be doing this week. We're just going to provide some feedback for thoughts and reflection as we prepare to enter our Easter celebration this Sunday. And this will be an Easter unlike any other Easter any of us have probably experienced before. One where we are sequestered and isolated and unable to meet together. And so we just thought we would provide this for you. It's going to be pretty raw and authentic. It's not going to be any. Sorry, my phone just kind of did something weird there. It's not going to be anything very raw and authentic, as you just saw. Not a high production thing. We really just want to provide you some food for thought and reflection and encouragement this week. And so I'll be reflecting on today, Monday, on the events that happened in the earthly life and ministry of Jesus on his last week on earth, as before he suffered death and ultimately overcame death through his resurrection on the first Easter Sunday. We'll have Rick and Jack and Andy will also be sharing some thoughts and reflections throughout the week. So the passage we're going to consider actually is recorded in all four gospel accounts, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gospel of Luke is the shortest recollection of the events, but I'm actually going to read from Matthew's account because it gives us a little bit more of the context of what was going on. So I'm reading in Matthew, beginning in chapter 21, beginning in verse 12, and I'm going to read down through verse 17. So let me just read the passage, give you some thoughts for reflection, and some points to apply and meditate on for your own life. So this would be Monday after the triumphal entry. And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you make it a den of robbers." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant, and they said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes, have you never read, 'Out of the mouth of infants and nursing babies you have prepared praise'?" And leaving them, he went out of the city to Bethany and lodged there. A few things going on here in this passage. Jesus enters the temple. The temple would have been the seat, the center of all religious activity for the Jew in Jerusalem. And so Jesus goes to the epicenter of all religious activity where sacrifices were made, and he enters into the courts. A lot of commentators note that this is where in these events, this is where money changing happened. So there was temple money, so they had to get their currency exchanged for temple currency, and then the animals for the sacrifices were made, were sold there. So those who were traveling from outside of Jerusalem didn't want to travel with the sacrifices; they would purchase them there in the courts to make the sacrifices at the temple. And so a few things about this. Jesus, what he's doing is he's upending really what the temple had become. And the temple had become this economic enterprise. It had become this place to circulate financial gain and to misuse and misappropriate religion for your own benefit. And so he goes and he turns tables over, and maybe you've seen this, the animals whip with cords. There were actually two temple cleansings that Jesus did, but here this is the second, and he goes in and he's cleaning out the temple because what he's doing is he's teaching his followers that he's actually doing away with the temple. And the way he would do away with the temple is that he would replace the temple with a true and better temple, and the temple would be himself. That Jesus would make claims like, tear this temple down, and in 3 days I will rise it back up, in reference to the tearing down of himself through his death, and then the rising up through the resurrection. And so Jesus begins to teach his followers that the temple, the old temple, is being replaced with this new and better temple. And the more shocking thing to the the modern hearer of that teaching, or to those who were around this event, would have been the expanded version that Jesus was teaching, was that the dwelling place of God would no longer be in a building. It wouldn't be in a geographical location, but it would be inside of his people. And so Jesus replaces the temple with himself, and then he says that he will fill up all of those who are united to him to make them the new temple in union with him. And so, what I've been thinking about this week, in these past several weeks, I think a lot of us are using this moment in history that we're currently in. Hopefully, you're using it to listen to God, to allow Him access into parts of your heart that have maybe prior to this been too busy, or complicated, or crowded. And so I think what this time of quarantine is doing for some of us is it's creating margin in our life to listen to God. And one of the things that God has been teaching me, one of the things He's been stripping away in my heart, and it's not something I would have necessarily been inclined to admit before this, is my impulse to be a consumer. I've never wanted to shop as bad as I do right now. I mean, I guess you don't realize what's in you until it's removed from you, or the possibilities are removed from you. And I think Jesus, he's doing this on this Monday because he's going to revolutionize the whole religious system. He's upending the whole thing. He's bursting onto the scene, and he's showing people their impulse to be consumers. And so, one of the things I want to apply and for you to reflect on in your own life is, have you used Jesus as a product to be consumed? Like, has Jesus primarily or even solely been just somebody who provides benefits to you? Because what Jesus is teaching me is that the end game for the Christian, for the Christian life, is not primarily the benefits that he's won for us. It's not less than that, but the end game is primarily that we get Jesus himself. And for some people, that's just not enough. And in my moments of honesty, which are coming more often than they have in the past, sometimes that's not enough for me either. And it's when we're honest like that actually Jesus speaks more clearly to us. Did you notice who was drawn to him in the temple right after he cleared it out? Verse 14. It's the blind and the lame. They came to the temple and he healed them. The reason the blind and the lame were drawn to Jesus is the same reason you ought to be drawn to Jesus. It's because the blind and the lame have no pretense that they offer something to Jesus. They brought nothing to the table. One of the teachings of Jesus that is it's haunting me right now, regularly, it's nagging at me, is his teaching from the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, where Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus is actively doing the work of binding up broken and divided hearts that are impoverished, hearts that are destitute, hearts that are lonely, hearts that are lame, hearts that are isolated. And the work of Jesus binding those hearts up is the work he's doing now. And so I guess I'm going to leave you uh, this Monday to reflect on this question honestly and openly with yourself and with Jesus. Have you felt your poverty? Like, have you felt your impoverished spirit need Jesus? Not just the benefits of Jesus, but actually need Jesus to heal your broken and divided heart. That's the question I'm going to leave you with to reflect on. I hope you have a good week. Jesus can handle your desperately broken and divided heart. He can handle it.